welcome to ETEducation Dialogues. I'm your host Shilpa Ratnam, and today I have with me somebody quite intimidating. This is Professor Bijayalaxmi Nanda, who's the principal of Miranda House. Ma'am, hello and welcome. And why I said intimidating is always intimidating to be in conversation with the principal. Do you get that a lot?
Thank you. No, I don't actually get that a lot, mainly because I have been a teacher for 30 years in the same college. So I don't get that word intimidating, but I can understand how you associate principalship with being intimidating.
It
So I
can.
understand that.
But maybe it's all changed, right? There's been a sea change in academia and education, and maybe the way students view principals as well.
True, true. I think Gen Z that way is, experimenting with learning across borders. It is meeting the best experts of the world. So this knowledge barrier, so to say, is broken. And also, I think places are not so hierarchical as they used to be. And also the Gen Z parents are different. So parenting has also changed. So in terms of understanding and learning, I feel the authoritative figure of a principal has also changed.
Okay, now I feel way more relieved and more reassured. Ma'am, the topic we have on hand today is tailoring curriculum for higher education so that students have the best opportunities when they go out into the job market. So to start off with, over the last 12 to 18 months, what's the kind of trend you've observed in learning?
So in terms of learning, we would say the pandemic brought us the online learning in a major way. But after that, there has been this breakdown in terms of learning and also the disruptive technologies that have come in. You name it, you have it. So you have the massive online courses. Then you had the national education policy bringing in multidisciplinarity, looking at research, engaging with ideas of flexibility. You had so many changes that have come in the last 8 to 12 months. You have a way in which the government of India has associated itself with the education landscape. So you have courses around skills, you have courses linking skills and research to the market. You also have this idea of internships, employability, employment, all of that coming in a package for young people. What is happening is there is this question of a lead and a lag. So you have a lead in terms of theoretical and frameworks. You have all of it there, especially with the NEP and with the leveraging of technologies that has come in with the market. But you also have a lag in terms of capacity building of the service providers. In universities, you have teachers who were trained to teach in a particular way. So universities are also working on faculty development programs. The alignment with industry is a very important part of it. How do you align? How do you look at relevant, future of work kind of situations? So I think the change is immense. We are also looking at indigenous knowledge systems, the Indian knowledge system, so to say, that has come up in a major way. You're also looking at languages, especially Indian languages across the length and breadth of the country coming up in a major way. So not just in English, but in various languages of the country, we would be, translating things, we would be communicating things. I think it's a lovely time to learn and to, go forward with what we are learning.
So the adoption of all these languages and the curriculum in these languages is only possible by machine translation, I'm guessing. And with that, we come to the question about advent of generative AI. It's permeated all fields in such a permanent manner. How has the impact on education been, ma'am?
Well, it is again an opportunity, but it's also a challenge. It's a challenge because you'll have to learn about all of them. The first thing you need to do is integrate those technologies into your education. How do you do that, especially in a curricula which hasn't done that in the past? So integrating that is the first step. And like you said, machine learning can be used to translate, it can be used for interpretation. So, but who will do that? How will you develop that capacity? So, integrating that particular technology is a very important one. And while you are doing that, the government of India has also made special, training programs. So, you have the AICTE, which has training programs, the Atal training programs, which is trying to bring people on board, trying to understand how teachers and students both can be at that the learning curve, so to say. So that is also happening. So when it comes to generative AI, when it comes to data analysis, when it comes to coding, which is one of the major kind of breakthroughs today, or when it comes to cyber security, these are the things that we have to open up to. And while we open up to that, we also need to look at the other kinds of changes around us, sustainable development, how can we bring about greater research and sustainable development, how we can link up the technological kind of changes, to the social issues. So the combination between science, machine learning, so to say, and society, this is also something that we need to do.
Ma'am, when it comes to AI, do you find there's a skill gap between the educators and the technology?
Yes, definitely. AI, in the way it is growing, every day it is changing. So you definitely look at what you see as a kind of a disruption which can lead to people just being thrown out of the workplace, and what is going to happen with that. So you do look at reskilling, you do look at upskilling. How are you going to do that? You need experts to teach you that. So by the time you would have learned a particular kind of coding, the whole design changes. So how do you keep up with that? Yes, there is a gap there. But what we need is hands-on training, experiential learning. You also need to increase the ability of young people, along with young faculty, to think of creativity and innovation. Because see, for example, in a college like mine, we did tie up with Google, and we thought we trained students on creating apps, but now anybody can do it, right? So how do you increase and enhance that knowledge? An educational institution is poised at a particular point when there are many opportunities, but the challenges are immense because we do not know what to do. So you are very right. That's a good question, that how do you also need to upskill and reskill, but also challenge the academic leaders, let's say a principal or somebody who's at that level, to learn the importance of all of this.
When it comes to adoption, perhaps students, by way of their age, are quicker adopters for sure. Ma'am, you mentioned that you had a tie-up with Google. Is that with way of certification or micro-credentials? Because that has become so essential now, by companies such as IBM, Google, L&T, all these certification courses that students are so eager about to equip them in the job market.
So in the beginning, it was in the form of, let's say, a short-term micro-credentials, or just getting us on board with the Google app, or creating kind of domain-specific, kind of names. That was how it was. It's 2016 by the former, leaders of the institution. However, what we are trying to do now, especially with, like, say, Coursera, for example, just getting on with courses like that, looking at micro-credentials. So micro-credentials with any organization, whether it is Google or it is any of the others that you are mentioning, the idea is that you create a modular program and you make it stackable. Until you do not make it stackable, it's not going to help. For example, there's a student of ours who studied political science, went on to do public policy in a university abroad. Then after that, she realized that she would rather do a course in data science. And she did a course in data science, went on to getting a job at the World Bank. So this journey is tailor-made. But how are we going to create that space? So in that, there's a very interesting program that Stanford does called Design Your Stanford. And I feel that is where the micro-credentials come in. Young people through the LinkedIn are already doing a lot. They're trying to grab every opportunity, but they need a certain kind of a, let's say, a guidance, or at least to speak to the experts to make up their mind. So in order to make it tailor-made, you need to create that space, that stackable kind of micro-credentials. Even for, let's say, for you and me, there's always that space, but who's going to tell us what to do? So let's say design your Miranda, or design your Stanford, just designing your life and having that. So I found that very interesting. Ashoka University has also adopted it. The University of Delhi is working on a lot of skill development, trying to create. We have a very dynamic Vice Chancellor doing excellent work on this field. And we are all enthused and we are trying out. But I feel that this, yes, you are very right, micro-credentials are the way to go. Because if the industries are not going to tell you what is relevant for them, telling young students that this is your skill enhancement course, that skill may not be needed in the market.
Ma'am, coming to that, that the skill may not be needed in the market. So there's so much uncertainty about what jobs are going to survive in the coming years. So what should students be learning? They want to be sure that what they've learned is not going to be redundant, because now even machines can code. Machines can do most operations. So how do you allay these fears in students, and how do you guide them towards a skill that will be employable in the future?
Right. I mean, I believe that's a challenge, and also that challenge is something that I would not be able to guide them towards. But what we can do is make them make the whole industry available to them, in the sense that they learn from the experts what is changing in the workplace. They learn it through experiential learning, through the way hands-on learning, learning by doing. These would be the ways to learn. But on that note, like, what is it that we could do? A very interesting part of just the fact that a generative AI can very much do content writing. It can do all the editing. So the editors are generally feeling nervous. A young student who's doing creative writing is feeling nervous. What is it that I'm going to do in this area? Let's say journalism, or for that matter even photography. How is that changing? So therein I feel something else is also coming up, and we need to recognize that. The ideas around emotional intelligence, very important. We should not lose touch with that. Equity, inclusion, diversity, those things AIs cannot give you. You have to create that in the workplace. Recently, the University of Delhi, we did a MOU with a Memorandum of Understanding with a leading educationist, and he is setting up Science of Happiness centers. And he said the next lead in any, I mean, there are countries which have Ministry of Happiness and the rest of it. There you would need a happiness coach. You need that, not separate from the HR. And you need to train your students on that. At some other time, if somebody told me you need a happiness coach in your institution, but I immediately saw the value of that. So we would be training our students to be happiness coaches. Wow. So, and I'm sure HR, apart from the HR, because the HR again is very clinical. So just having an happiness coach to, guide you through your life, apart from the whole idea of medicalized mental health, which is another set of that. So looking at those kind of cohorts would be interesting in terms of learning.
Absolutely. A happiness coach,
Right.
What better way to be happy and to not worry indeed.
Right.
Ma'am, I started this conversation by saying I was very intimidated, but by the end of it, I feel we've had a very intimate and candid discussion
Right.
about the future of learning. Thank you so much for talking to us
Thank you, Shilpa.
today.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Likewise.